Hello and welcome to your Need to Know for July 17th, coming to you from Meadow Mill. I'm Amanda, that is Alan. You can join us here every Tuesday at 12:30 for your weekly news roundup and a discussion of current events. Alan.
Yes.
Before we jump into the heinous international election meddling, we need to provide an update on one election closer to home.
Right. The election that never would
ended.
End,
it sort of ended.
But it has.
It sort of has ended. Although, this is only the half of it.
Right. Yeah. Right. Well, the primary. After 3 days of recounting paper ballots, Johnny Olszewski Jr. was affirmed July 14th as winner of the Democratic Party for a Democratic primary, for Baltimore County Executive, according to the Baltimore Sun. Mm-hmm. Officials hand-counted 87,222 ballots and determined that the former state delegate won by 17 votes over the second-place finisher, State Senator Jim Brochin. That's got to hurt.
It's
17
a bummer
votes.
Because it went up from 9.
Yeah. Whoever heard of that? Winning by 17 votes. Incredible.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, County Councilwoman Vicki Allman remained in third place, and Kearney resident Kevin Marin, also known as who, finished fourth. Nobody ever heard of the guy.
People in Kearney know him, maybe.
Maybe in Kearney they know him. We're going to work harder than any campaign has ever worked, and we're going to win in November, Olszewski said. I think he's probably right about that.
You do?
You never know.
Go, Olszewski.
Brochin congratulated Olszewski on a hard-fought campaign victory. The general election matchup will be between Olszewski, 35, he's also known as Johnny O.
Johnny O.
And Republican nominee Al Redmer Jr., who is 62.
I don't know him.
So we'll see.
All right. So now for the bad news. You might have heard,
maybe.
that, Jinx, that Trump and Putin, who they need a nickname. They need a Trumpin, pump. Trutin had a summit in Helsinki yesterday. It went swimmingly for the Russians.
That's what I hear. For
the U.S., however, maybe, I don't know, I would be willing to call it one of the darkest days in our country's history. Maybe that's just me. I don't think it is. So, in other words, we've hit rock bottom.
Okay. Well, President Trump met with his Russian counterpart, President Vladimir Putin, on July 16th in Helsinki for a summit that you've probably heard about. It's been being called a win for the Russians.
Yeah.
According to CNN, Trump's favoring of Putin's denial of election interference accusations leveled by the United States intelligence community was not just the most abject display given by any president overseas. It may also be the moment that validated claims that Trump values his own interests above those of the United States.
I think so. I think that this tells us that for sure.
Trump was asked directly which one he believed, his own intelligence community or Putin, according to NPR. In so many words, Trump gave the answer, Putin.
That's kind of problematic, buddy.
And this is being roundly condemned by Republicans and Democrats alike.
Anyone with a thought process, yes.
Senator John McCain, the Arizona Republican, called it, quote, one of the most disgraceful performances by an American president in recent memory.
Hear, hear.
And it's not just McCain, it's people on Fox News, conservative commentators,
by the way, but yes.
The Lindsey Grahams and the Paul Ryans out there, they're very upset about this.
You said earlier, right?
I'm sorry?
Newt Gingrich?
Newt Gingrich has also
criticized
it because he's been pretty supportive of Trump for the most part. One conservative wag said that Ronald Reagan is spinning in his grave right now.
Yeah, I mean, yes, thankfully the Republicans are starting to catch a clue. That is nice. I appreciate that. It's unfortunate we had to get to this point. But if anything comes out of this, maybe it's the fact that everyone will start thinking logically and actually making decisions based on our country's needs and not whether or not what their party affiliation is.
Well, when you have former CIA chiefs saying that this is treasonous, it has to wake you up a little bit.
I
don't know if there's anything that anybody's going to do. I mean, is this going to be another Charlottesville where everybody gets outraged and then
the words are almost identical, really. If he said the racist Nazi skinhead Ku Klux Klan people were some good and some bad.
Right.
And the other side also some good and some bad. He's basically the same thing about Putin. Yeah, they're okay, maybe not okay. I don't know. It's all good.
Right.
So anyway,
it's a little vexing.
I am vexed, so very vexed.
Meanwhile, our very own Michael Olesker actually blogged about this matter prior to the summit on jmoreliving.com yesterday.
He's prescient.
This is what he wrote. Only President Trump withholds validation. He's referring to the intelligence community,
right,
and how they view Russian meddling in the elections of 2016.
It's not how they view, by the way. It is what they have found.
Right.
And every one of our intelligence agencies agrees that this is a major problem. It's not an opinion. It's not fake news. It's something that was determined.
Right. So Olesker wrote, referring to the president, he continues to call the investigation by special counsel Robert Mueller a witch hunt, despite last week's indictment of a dozen Russian agents. That action should allow Trump to tell Putin, we not only know you invaded our election, we know the names of the guys who did it.
Yeah, missed opportunity. That's what he should have said.
Obviously, he did not do so.
He didn't say that.
Yet Trump issues empty words about asking Putin if he authorized the attack, but says there's no way he'll know if the Russians telling him the truth. And those dozen Russians indicted last week, this is the moment where Trump should tell Putin, as part of your penance for your crimes, you must allow the United States to extradite those perpetrators to the U.S. to stand trial. Again, this never happened, but if you want to read Michael Olesker's blog, it's on jmoreliving.com.
Wherever we are. jmoreliving.com.
So he was a little prescient in this whole matter.
He was.
It was only a couple hours before the summit.
Right. And yes, Trump should have done exactly those things. And, when you talk about how he didn't know if Putin would be telling the truth or not. So Putin denies everything and says, no, we didn't do that. And Trump just believes him and sat there with, pretty much a known war criminal, an ex-KGB agent, and not just an all-around not good human being, and nodded in agreement. That's shameful. This is a blatant misuse of power. It's possibly treasonous, as some former people are saying, and at the very least, it's a massive betrayal on our country. I know we're probably not supposed to be sitting here being this biased, but this isn't even about biases anymore. It's about right and wrong.
This isn't even about Democrats and Republicans.
It's about what can we do? What can we do in this room? What can you guys do out there as viewers? What can we do to fix this situation and help our country not have to suffer from decades of backstepping or whatever. How do we fix this?
So on the lighter side of things,
yeah, go ahead.
I collected the late night comics, of course, had a field day with his whole thing.
Of course they did.
I collected a few of their observations.
Lucky them.
Well, Jimmy Kimmel, it's been a bonanza for those guys. Jimmy Kimmel called Putin Trump's KGB-FF, and he asked is it possible Vladimir Putin brought a hypnotist to that meeting instead of a translator? we haven't seen an American so owned by a Russian since Rocky IV.
Ouch!
Yeah.
Ouch!
Meanwhile, Stephen Colbert said is it Colbert or Colbert? Colbert.
I think he's still Colbert.
He says Colbert.
That's still his
he
character.
goes with the French, right?
No, it's just his character. Like the real guy is Colbert, but
okay.
I think.
Well, that guy, Colbert, said of the reaction to the summit, those are the worst reviews I've seen since Titanic, and I don't mean the movie. Seth Meyers said the president gushed over Putin like a flustered 12-year-old girl who just met Mickey at Disneyland. Trevor Noah said, now in Trump's defense, he has a good point. Sure, on the one hand, Russia messed with the U.S. by meddling in the elections. But on the other hand, America held the elections, so they were really asking for it. Yeah, that makes sense.
We can't even do that anymore.
Right.
Actually, what if we all banded together and just refused to vote? You can't meddle with an election that didn't get any voters, can you?
Yeah,
can you still do that? We would have to prove
I don't know if we want to go down that
people.
road. All those soldiers that died for our right to vote.
Oh, yeah, that.
Right?
Oh, remember that? Okay,
right.
Continue.
And the last one is Jimmy Fallon of The Tonight Show, who said, according to experts, Trump and Putin had a lot to negotiate in their meeting. Trump says the negotiations went great. Putin now controls New York and California. And in exchange, Trump got 3 magic beans. And he also said at the end of the meeting, Trump and Putin didn't sign any formal deal or agreement because they spent the whole time trying to make sure the other guy wasn't Sacha Baron Cohen.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Thank God for
There you
our
go.
comedians, because
We
I
need
would be
them.
sobbing right now if I wasn't laughing. If anyone out there who is watching can tell me why we shouldn't be scared out of our wits right now about the current state of affairs, please chime in. Tell us. I mean,
Kyle,
are you
do you want to chime in?
Kyle does not want to chime in. But,
Okay.
like, seriously, if you're watching and you've got something to say about this, are we wrong? I don't really think so. But if you're just joining us, this is JMore's Need to Know on Facebook Live. Share, like, and follow at hashtag JMore Need to Know. So continuing the theme of people in power behaving badly.
Well, yes, and this has local connection. The new U.S. Embassy in Jerusalem is going to cost a bit more than the president had estimated.
Slightly.
Make that nearly 100 times more. That's what's being reported.
Math F.
The Maryland-based firm Desbild Limach D&K was awarded a $21.2 million contract to design and build compound security upgrades to the embassy, according to official documents uploaded this week by Al Monitor. Mm-hmm. The U.S. has already spent $335,000 to refurbish the embassy, formerly a consulate, way ahead of its May opening.
Okay.
We're going to have it built very quickly and inexpensively, the president told reporters in March, following his decision months earlier to recognize Jerusalem as Israel's capital and relocate the U.S. embassy there.
Right.
They put an order in front of my desk last week for $1 billion, he said. We're actually doing it for $250,000, so check that out, he said. Well, someone is.
Check this out, buddy.
Trump repeated this numerous times, eventually raising the price to $400,000 during a news conference with German Chancellor Angela Merkel. Angela, thank
Don't be
you.
like him.
Merkel, sorry.
He doesn't know her name.
As the president, well, I'm not president.
That's right.
As the president stated, the cost of initial modifications made to permit the embassy to open on May 14th was approximately $400,000, a State Department official said. The $21.5 million total, quote, is actually a lot for that, considering that they have plans to apparently purchase a new facility, an aide in the House of Representatives told Al Monitor. Mm-hmm. The Trump administration has not announced when it plans to begin construction on a permanent embassy. So there you go.
This sounds very familiar. And I don't know, for a real estate tycoon, he doesn't seem to know what things should be costing, which is kind of weird. He just wants to build. He wants to build where he feels like building. Yep. It doesn't matter who's going to pay for it or how anyone's going to pay for it. Have we figured out who's footing the bill on the wall yet?
Not yet.
Have we heard about that?
Mexico.
Have we gotten the bill?
They're paying for
Did
it
the bill
all.
come to me? I don't know. But yeah, Mexico, sure. They laugh. They just sit there and laugh at that. Okay, but wait, there's more.
There's more. Oh, yes. The president's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, a top White House advisor, now lacks the highest level of security clearance. Kushner received the permanent top secret security clearance in late May, which does not allow him to review some of the government's most sensitive secrets, according to the Washington Post. Kushner may not review, quote, sensitive compartmentalized information known as SCI, which primarily involves U.S. intelligence sources and surveillance methods, according to the Post. Mm-hmm. Thus, Kushner has been prevented from seeing some parts of the president's daily briefing, a highly classified summary of world events that sometimes describes intelligence programs and operatives, according to the Washington Post. In February, Kushner's clearance was downgraded from top secret to secret following a temporary clearance. So this is an odd circumstance
strange.
here.
That's a little strange. I bet Putin has more access than Kushner at this point.
According to the Post, the reason for the downgrade was not clear, but reports at the time noted that his family real estate business was in debt, and his global investments would make a businessman like him vulnerable to foreign influence.
Vulnerable to foreign influence. If Kushner and his little slumlord properties can be vulnerable to foreign influence.
He owns my old neighborhood in Randallstown. I told you.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
You may also be vulnerable to some foreign influence, but you know, I think the leader of the free world who had dealings with Russia since the 80s may also be vulnerable to influence.
Now, we had earlier mentioned Sacha Baron Cohen.
Yes, we had.
And he has a new show debuting.
Yay! The return of Sacha. We need him right now.
Badly.
We need him.
He's back, and he's taking aim at a strain of pro-Israel thought that has delighted and unsettled many American Jews, the unconditional love engendered by the country among conservative Americans.
Right.
In Who is America, which made its debut on Showtime on July 15th, the British Jewish comic returns with the shtick that made him famous, disguising himself in order to pull off pranks. Mm-hmm. Cohen's latest character is Israeli Colonel Aaron Marad, a purported terrorism expert. There's a lot of them in Israel. In the debut show, Cohen, as Murad, dupes a few current and recent politicians as well as gun rights activists into supporting an initiative to arm toddlers. There you go. And some of the politicians are Sarah Palin, of course, who's been very bitter about it publicly. And he mentioned
Dick
somebody
Cheney,
else.
but I don't think
Dick
he had to
Cheney.
do with that
Okay.
episode. I think they made him sign a waterboarding kit, and it was a
That's right.
problem
That's right. I heard about that. That's great. You can't
love
make this
Sacha
stuff up.
Baron Cohen. Yes, he is a shock comic, but he also does some pretty powerful political satire.
He's
and-
brilliant.
Yeah, I agree. All right, before we bring everyone totally down, or before I
Right.
just give up entirely, give us a J word of the day.
All right. Well,
a nice light one.
The J word of the day is pach,
Pach.
which is a Yiddish word. It means a slap or a smack.
Little spanking.
Example is, if you don't act right, I'm going to have to give you a good pach.
I know some people who need a good patch.
Yep.
If you are interested in getting all the best from J Moore each week in your newsletter, go to jmoreliving.com/newsletters to sign up for our regular Thursday newsletter and our new This Week in Baltimore Eating newsletter coming
Yeah.
soon. Do it.
Exciting.
Remember to join us here on Facebook Live Tuesdays at 12:30 for your Need to Know News Roundup. Go to jmoreliving.com for more news updates. Good luck, everyone.
Take care.